Okay, guys, we're going to learn how to make our very own typing test app. And look, we can choose the difficulty easy, 221 characters, medium, and hard. It's a lot longer, right? Or you can even write your own test like this. Once you press start, if you get it right, it'll be green, and the next one blinks. If you get it wrong, it'll be red, but you can fix it. And when you're done, it'll give you the words per minute and all of the other extra information. Okay, let's go through this. So I'll delete all of these functions and we're going to write this from scratch. I'll leave all of this here. So far we have the sample text, all of our global variables, and then this render text function. We're going to take the text that we have right here, convert it to an array so we can use for each. And for each, we're going to create a span element and then make the text content of that span the value. Okay? And then the ID we'll get from the index. And then we're going to append all of our spans to our container. Okay? And we need to do this because each one of these characters needs its own span div so that we can turn the background either red or green, depending if they get it right or wrong. Okay? So that's why we need a span. And then I'll render text here. Now, to get started, we need these global variables. The let user get started will keep track of, hey, have they pressed start yet? Mistakes keeps track of the mistake. Timer keeps track of the timer. Current character count keeps track of, hey, which letter or character are we on in the current string? And then obviously we need a my interval to increase the timer. Okay, so now we have our start button. Start button.on click. So when we click the start button, let's think about what needs to happen. First of all, if they click started, user started should be true, right? And then also we need to delete all of the sample text. So we can do container.innerHTML because they're all inside of a span. So you need to do this. Container.innerHTML is now an empty string. And then let's disable this button. This dot disabled is now true. This dot text content, we can say start typing. All right, so right now, if we click, nothing happens, but it says start typing and the button is disabled. So far, so good. Let's think about what else needs to happen when we click on the start. Well, first, shouldn't we hide this text area and this select difficulty thing? Yeah, we actually should. So let's go to our HTML. We can select the field set and the text area. Okay, so we can do document.querySelector field set .style.display is equal to none. And then let me copy this part. And then we already have the text area variable. And then we can do this as well. Okay. So now when we press start, look, everything goes away. Okay, so how do we render it? Well, since we did let with our text, we can do something like text will now be equal to what? Text area dot value dot trim. Let's trim away all of the empty spaces. Okay, and then we can do or call render text again, passing in the new value of text. Let's try this now. See, we actually get the value. Okay, now let's do something else. Now, when we don't type in our own, we want it to choose from easy, medium, or hard, depending on what the user chooses. Now, notice in my HTML, I have an index2.js, which has the collection object, and it has the easy, text, medium, and hard. Okay. So when this index1 loads, it already has the collection variable from index2. Okay, so right here, text equals value.trim or, and I'll define a new function. I'll just say render difficulty. Okay, that's good. Now let's write our own render difficulty. Function render difficulty. So this means if they don't enter in anything, we have to see if they selected easy, medium, or hard. All right, so now let me do const our inputs will be, so if we go to our HTML, all of these are inputs, right? So we can do document.querySelector all, and then we can use string input. And then let's do const chosen difficulty. And now this is a node list, but I want to convert it to an array so I can use the find method. Easiest way, spread operator on the all, right? And then we can do dot find. So what are we trying to find? Well, we're gonna try to find the tag where the tag got checked, right? Because if we select it, then its checked attribute will be true, right? And then it's gonna return that input, but we don't want that. We want the value of the input, right? So you look right here, the value of the input will tell us, hey, what level did they choose? So right here, you can end this with dot value, okay? And then here, we can return, but what are we returning? We're returning this collection object at the key name that they chose. So collection at chosen difficulty. Oh, and this all right here should be all inputs. My bad. Okay, now let's look on the right. If we don't type in our own test and we click start, it'll be the easy. Okay. Now let's choose the hard, and you can see that it's a lot longer. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. What else are we missing? Well, we're missing the character counter. So after they press start and we render text, how do we know what's the total character count? Okay, so let me see. Our char counter tag, let's do char counter tag dot text content will be equal to, well, you can get it from the text.length, or you can even do container.child element count, right? Because remember, we created a bunch of spans and then we appended it. So those are child element counts. And then this will say chars total. Okay, let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we start, it says 4 characters total. If we choose the medium, 903 characters total. Okay, so looks like everything's working. Yep. What's the next thing that we have to do? Well, let's see. Well, we have the mistakes counter. Let's see. So right now we can just say mistakes tag dot text content would just be equal to, let's just say current mistakes, and then let's do the mistakes right here. And then the last thing that we need to do, right, is we need to start our interval, which is right now null. So you can do something like my interval is now equal to set interval. And this, I like to make it run every quarter of a second, so 250 milliseconds. And every time it does that, it would just increase our timer of variable, which is at 0. It's going to increase it by 0.25 every time, okay? Because I want this to run every quarter of a second. Now, if you just put 1 millisecond, that's going to be too much, right? So to me, I think this is perfect. And then later on, we're going to clear this interval. Okay, so we did our start, button.onClick. So now how do we know which keys that they press? Well, you can do something like document.onKeyPress, which I know is deprecated, but it's perfect for this project. Okay, and then here is where we had our guard clause, right? So you see when they click start, we change user started to true. So our guard clause would say if user has not started, this function would not even run, okay? It will just return itself. And then also I'm going to do something, so if e.keycode is equal to 32, I'm going to do e.prevent default. So this is when they're typing something that's really long and they press a space bar, the default will make it scroll up or down, and that's going to mess with the viewer's screen. So we want to prevent that default. Okay, so now we need to know two things. We need to know, hey, what's the current HTML element that they're on? So const character, so the current character div that they're on, we can say document dot get element by ID. And then remember right here, each one has the ID of char and then index. So char, but our global index is actually current character count right here. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. Oops. Current character count. Yeah, like that. Okay, and then we also need to know the next character because we need to add the blink CSS, right? So next char will be equal to char dot next element sibling. Okay. Now remember in CSS, we have a keyframes blink, which just turns opacity from 0 to 1. And then whichever element has the dot has blink class, we'll just run this blink in 1.8 seconds indefinitely. So it looks like a blinking cursor. All right. So now how do we know when the user gets something right? Well, you can check if e.key, if that is actually equal to char.text content, right? Then we actually know that they got it correct. And if they get it correct, that means we have to increase our current character count. Plus plus, and also that means our current character dot style dot background will be green because we got it right. Okay? And this means the next character's div will get the has blink dot class list dot add has blink. But we need to use the optional chaining question mark because sometimes next char won't exist and then it'll be undefined and you get an error. But with this, you won't. Okay? And then also don't forget our current character, we also have to remove has blink. Okay? This is because if we keep on typing, we don't want all of our previous characters to blink. Okay? Only the first time. Jar.class list, and I'll add one right here as well. Okay, so now let's try our own. Let's try hello. If I press H, you see that it's green and the E is blinking. If I press E, they're both now not blinking and the next one is blinking. Okay, so how do we know if they get it wrong? You might think we can just do else mistakes plus plus, but this doesn't work, right? Because let's say if they mistype the S and then they press another button that's not S, it's going to count as more than one mistake, but we don't want that. Okay? We only want to count it the first time. So you have to do something like else if char dot data set, which we haven't done yet, dot tried. If this is falsy, it means this is our first time missing this character. Okay? If it's the first time, then our mistakes can actually go up, right? Then we're going to set this character's data set dot try to true so that the next time we get it wrong, this part will not run, so the mistakes plus plus will not run. Okay? And then now we can do char dot style dot background will be equal to red. Okay. All right, so let's try now. If I mistype it, you see that it's red, but I can fix it and it's green. Mistype, it's red. I can fix it and it turns to green. Cool. The last thing we need to find out is how do we know when the user's done typing all of the characters? So easy enough, we can actually just check that by checking about current character count, if that is equal to the text.length, because that's the total amount of characters. So when that happens, we're done. We're clearing the interval. Whoops, I think it's my interval. Okay, and then now you can do document.body.innerHTML. Now let's do a few paragraph text. Now, what do we want to tell the user? We want to tell them how long it took them to finish, right? How many mistakes, their accuracy, and their words per minute. So you can say finished in, and we kept track of the timer, so we know how many seconds, right? With mistakes. And then accuracy. How do we find out the percentage of accuracy correct? Well, we only need the mistakes actually. So let me do it here. After we clear the interval, let's do const accuracy will be equal to the amount that they got correct, which is the total minus the mistakes. So that's how much they got correct, divided by the total, which is also text.length. and then times 100 to get their percentage, right? So then right here, you can just put in the variable accuracy and then the percent sign. Now, how do we do the words per minute? Well, right now we have letters per second, right? So let's do const words per minute. Now, let's see, we're only counting how many they got correct first, right? So this is how many they got correct. Right? So how many they got correct divided by the timer. So this is how many letters they got correct in 1 second, but we want 1 minute. So we're multiplying everything by 60. Okay, let me put some more brackets, even though we don't need it, so it looks nicer. Now, after all of this, we have how many letters they type a minute, but we want words. So when I looked up the English language, the average word has about 4.7 characters. Yeah. And then if you want, you can even round off all of this. And then down here, you can just say, let's see, whatever words per minute. And I wonder if you can just do .to fixed here. Oh yeah, you can. To fixed is 0. Let's see. All right. Let me do hello, HELLO, 32 words per minute, 100% accuracy. Forgot the word words. Okay, I hope that was helpful.